We will do our customary group introductions.
I'm sorry.
Fair warning, we have a lot of trade dollar people here today. All right. Ken, you want to start?
Okay, I'm Ken Otto. I'm from Houston and Colorado, occasionally Montana. And
Do you know where you are now?
And it changes every year, right?
yeah, East Coast somewhere. It does change.
The man of 1,000 homes.
And then my collecting interest these days is primarily Liberty seated dollars.
Greg Johnson, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, seated quarter collector and currently editor of the Gilbert Journal.
Yeah, I'm Randall C. I'm from Stanton, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and I collect mostly trade dollars and bust half dollars.
Alan Welty from just outside Baltimore and seated half dimes.
Don Bennett, New Jersey. Had been a member of the Liberty Seated Collectors Club for some time, but as a result of my more recent interest in Spanish colonials, I have turned my back on Liberty Seated material, even though it's kind of like my first love. And since I was here for the show, it's been a while, I wanted to come back and see you all.
Morning, everybody. Dan White from Canandaigua, New York, also known as Wine Country in the Finger Lakes region. I deal in all of the denominations of seated types, and it's something I primarily focus on, so feel free to visit me.
John Beam from Catonsville. Primarily right now I'm doing a lot of reading and some research.
Chad Green, San Carlos, California. I collect seated halves, both proof and circulation, and then I'm building a 1879 date set.
David Reimer, Alexandria, Virginia, trade dollars.
Joe Gersh-Kessner of Concord, Mass, trade dollars as well.
Jeremy Maurer, Sacramento, California, also trade dollars.
Darrell Lowe from New York, New York, collecting most all seated denominations, and the upcoming new owner of Jerry Ford and Rare Coins.
Matthew Mayers from Westchester County, all denominations of seated.
Robert DeBold, Greenwich, Connecticut. Once you get bitten by the seated bug, you really can't give it up, but these days I'm concentrating on bullion, so they call me Bobby Bullion.
Yeah, I'm John Nursen, club number 906, and I had assembled a complete collection of halves and recently auctioned it off.
Joe Casaza from New Hampshire. I collect seated quarters and halves in early tenor, so I quit at 53.
Dennis Fortier, Tennessee, half dollar guy, and I'm president of the Seated Half Society.
Gary Galbo from Nashua, New Hampshire, and I'm a full-time dealer, don't collect anything.
Good morning, I'm Joel Meredith. I live in Columbia, Maryland, it's about 13 miles outside of downtown. I collect unique seated halves, which means a shipwreck or inscribed or counterstamp collection. Almost have a complete set now, getting real close. Also, I specialize in seated Liberty shipwreck coins, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later.
And John Frost from Massachusetts. I'm education director. I'm known for 20-cent pieces, but I collect seated dollars and trade dollars as well, and the others by title.
All right, well, I'll start this off with a story I heard yesterday. Maybe we can put our collective intelligence together and tell if this is a true story or not. But a guy walked up to the club table and he said there is a complete set of seated coinage on the floor that somebody is selling. I can't tell you who it is or who he's trying to sell it to, but it's a complete set and he will only sell for cash. So, I don't know if anyone else heard that story yesterday, but be on the lookout. So, all right, very good. So I'll give a few club updates. Greg Johnson's going to talk about publications. Summer seminar is on again this year. John will elaborate. Ken will talk about regional report. And then Joel Meredith is talking about shipwreck coins. Also, there's Joel's display of shipwreck coins is down at the club table, so come by, have a look at that. It's really cool. All right.
Down there.
Oh, okay. All right, so we have Joel talk about this further, but we have seeded half dollars from the Republic, from the Central America, and one other one.
New York.
SS New York, SS Republic.
Okay, all right.
You skipped over one.
Oh. All right, so the Egobrecht has published its 250th issue. Congratulations to Bill Buggard and Paul Cluth for carrying the torch on that publication. Paul has indicated an intention to step down next spring, so we are looking for a new editor for Egobrecht. Any interest, let us know. The fall journal is almost in the mail.
Next week.
Okay, all right. So thanks to Greg for getting that together and for all the members who contributed articles. On the 501c3 front, we now are incorporated in Illinois. The next step is to actually submit the application to the IRS. We have no idea what to expect in terms of timing, but Jeff Pritchard is taking care of that. And the New Orleans Mint class is going to be offered again next summer in Colorado Springs. So if you haven't been to the summer seminar out there, it's a really great week. It's a lot of fun. All right, our dues renewal cycle is coming for 2026. And you can go on the website and submit dues, do it electronically, take care of it that way. And then we'll also have the voting for the Club Literary Awards for 2025. And this can all be done online now, so it makes it a lot more convenient. And last year we got, I think like 40% of our renewals came online, which just streamlines the process for everyone. Okay, I'll hand it over to Greg.
Okay, well, as we've already mentioned, the fall issue is complete and at the printer. Expected to mail next Wednesday, that's November 12th, give or take a day or two. Lot of material this time, thanks again to the authors. I will say it's a very Dick Osborne-centric issue in the sense that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He has an article about the 1841 dollars. And also at my request, if those of you who've been around for a while will know he finished a complete set of mid-state seated halves, which he sold in 2011, and wrote an article about that in 2013. So he's updated that article. And again, especially if you haven't read the first one, but even if you have, there's a lot there. Okay, it's a long article, but there's a lot of interesting things to read. Jeff Pritchard has a very interesting, perhaps a little controversial for some, article about Robert Ball Hughes and his work on Liberty seated designs. So again, I have the proof here if anybody just can't wait, but it should be in your mailbox within a couple of weeks. Thanks again to the authors. I do want to remind you we're always looking for material. I've really had a good year this year in terms of authors getting me a lot of good stuff early, so keep it up. Thank you.
All right, as a reminder on address changes, please let us know. Some people move in the winter if they have multiple residences, so just please keep us apprised if there's any address changes. So we always get a few that come back and we have to chase down the number and try and get them correctly delivered. All right, Egobrecht, this is our free monthly e-publication, so if you're not already on the email list, please let us know, we'll get you added. And again, we are looking for a new editor for this publication. All right, John?
All right, so last year we offered a new course called The New Orleans Mint, Its Coinage and Its History, and I have to say it was a hit. And Len and Craig Eberhard and myself were the instructors, and I'll tell you, we had a ball. We all learned something, and we decided instead of waiting until 27 to offer the class, we said, we had just a lot of demand. There were, we talked to a number of people, said, oh, I wish I could have gotten in that class. So we are going to offer it again. This is not a Liberty seated class. We cover everything from the New Orleans Mint, half dimes through double eagles. And we go into a lot of the history. And again, as Len said, if you've never been to summer seminar, I mean, just imagine you wake up in the morning, you start thinking about coins, you go to breakfast, you think about coins, talk, and you do that until you can't stay awake at night. It's just such a, an immersion, experience. It's just great. So if you, want to join us in Colorado Springs, we're doing it in session 1. It's a 2-week program, and we're in the first week, and we have, people of all ages. So please join us. The catalog isn't available yet, but it will be relatively soon. They usually open up registration at the very end of December, early January. So the catalog will be found at money.org/summer seminar, and we'll have all the course listings there. Register early, because our class got pretty full pretty early. So again, we expect this class to be, now that the word is out about it, we'll probably get a sellout. I am going to make a shameless plug. The same week I'm doing 2 evening mini seminars. I do mint errors every year, and one year I'll do the oddball denominations, and the next year I'll do patterns. So this year is for the oddball denominations, very like our course on New Orleans, very hands-on. We pass along a lot of coins for examination. And for errors, I don't do, off-center Lincoln Memorial cents and stuff. There's a lot of seated and bust and, barbers and, obsolete things. So these are very well received. Ken?
Okay, just on the summer seminar real quick, I was an attendee this year. It was a very good course and very enjoyable. Well, we've had a good year with a regional program. We do about 20 plus shows a year where we set up. Last month in October, we were at 4 shows, trying to go to 5. One of them that I helped set up at is Denver, and second year that we've set up there. It's a very good program. So we're here now, obviously, and then we'll kick off the year in Orlando at the Fun Show. And then John and I will be in Conroe, the Houston Money Show. And then just we have several other activities planned for the first quarter of 2026, including Savannah. We set up at the Winter A&A Show last year in Atlanta, and it was well worth our time. It's a good show. Okay.
And then, I don't know, Dennis, do we have any shirt? We still have a few shirts for sale.
We absolutely do. So stop by the club table if you're interested in a shirt.
Okay, and now we're going to set up for our guest speaker. Well, he's not a guest, he's a member, so he's
Esteemed speaker.
Okay. He's got some door prizes. Anybody who didn't get a ticket, raise your hand.
I missed this memo.
Anybody over here?
okay.
All right, good morning all. Again, my name's Joel Meredith, And just a couple opening comments. First, my first acquisition of a seated Liberty shipwreck coin was in 2019. And it's part of what led me to the journey of becoming a member and a passion about seated halves. So I just share that. So I've really dived into this as a historian. For about 15 years, I was the local council historian for the Boy Scouts of America, so I'm very adept at doing research and digging for information. Second, I would share that as I'm going through the presentation, if you have a question, raise your hand. Stop me as I'm rolling through it. So let's get started here. So shipwrecks, I think, are just fascinating because they're a time capsule of a historic event. And every one of them has a unique story. There's the recovery of the silver coins. When we look at shipwrecks, silver coins are the most affordable that allows you to get an artifact versus the gold. Everybody gets gaga about all the gold coins, but I think silver is really a kind of fascinating element of shipwrecks. So there's I call 5 themes. Each ship has a unique history. And when you read about the ships, you go, oh wow, that's really kind of intriguing. Then there's the impact of the loss of the ship. What happened? How many people perished? Why did the ship go down? Where did it go down? And then there was the discovery of the ship. And those are always unique historic stories also, and very intriguing. And there's a lot of actual legal and international law around recovery and shipwreck recovery. There's a battle going on internationally right now over a Spanish galleon, and that's not going to get entangled for another 10 years probably. And then there's the story of the recovery, and each of the recoveries are unique and how the coins were recovered from the wreck. And then again, back to the coins. They're an artifact. If you think about the archaeological digs in Egypt or around the world, and there's artifacts, but they don't like the artifacts leaving their countries anymore. In fact, a lot of the artifacts are going back. So here's you can have a piece of unique history in your hand. I think was really kind of fascinating. So there are 3 significant, and I underline the word commercial, U.S. shipwrecks. And I mentioned commercial because these were contracted U.S. government mail packet ships. So each of those ships, the captain was a United States naval captain, an active officer of the ship. And that was part of the contracting process. The first shipwreck is the SS New York, and she was a very elegant ship, not terribly large, and her run was from Galveston, Texas to New Orleans. And she was lost in 1846 in the Gulf of Mexico, and it was only a handful of people perished in that particular one. It was about $40,000 in gold and silver that was lost in that one, and it very quickly, lost in history because soon after the shipwreck, there was a little thing called the Mexican-American War took place. So that kind of got overshadowed and lost the history, and then rediscovered about 150 years later when the divers, and that's the story, is the people who discovered the ship and then excavated it. The big one that many people know about and heard about is the SS Central America, and it's also dubbed the Ship of Gold because of the sheer amount of gold that was on the ship. But there was a large amount of silver as well. And it went down off the coast of Savannah, South Carolina, and it was close to 2 miles down in the ocean. So the excavation, the technology, and what it took to get that ship, the recovery, is really a fascinating story. And then the final one is the SS Republic, which is the one that really led me into this hobby, because the Republic is a very unique, it was ahead of its time technology ship. And where we're sitting right now, it's about a half mile is where all its engines and boilers were made. And about a mile from here in Fells Point is where the ship was built. It was called the SS Tennessee when it was originally built. So it's and it's a historically important ship of the 1850s and 1860s and throughout the Civil War. So let's talk about the recoveries. There was 2 recoveries with the Central America. The first, in 1991, there were about 24 silver coins recovered. Not a lot. Tons of gold, lots of gold, and there were various specimens. Only about 12 to 18 of the Seated Liberty specimens could be clearly identified. Many of the others, they were clumped together because of the saltwater corrosion, or you couldn't see the date. There were 3 $half. They could see the reverse because that was protected. You could see the S-mint, but you couldn't get the date. There was one 1857S. It's going to show you a picture of it shortly, and it's on display downstairs. It was in the Christie's auction catalog when the coins were auctioned. Second recovery, long time in between. Well, from just a brief history, there was a lot of legal entanglements from the first recovery and lawsuits, and it took about 10, 11 years to get that straightened out. And about 8% of the first recovery went to claimants. We'll call it 8% for simple math. And the other went to the original company that recovered it, and that was Tommy Thompson and Bob Evans, who were the 2 leads. All those coins were sold to a guy named Whitman Baltimore and the California Gold Marketing Group. And we'll talk more about that. But in the second recovery, thanks to Dwight Manley hiring Q. David Bowers to say, I want you to write in depth. And so we have very clear data on Central America of how many seated dimes were recovered, how many quarters. So dimes, 7,518 seated dimes were recovered. There was about 8,000 dimes, so there was a bunch of cap bust dimes recovered and a few foreign. Quarters, there were 577 seated Liberty quarters. There was another like 40 or 50 cap bust quarters. $half, 323 seated $half. There was another 40 or 50 other miscellaneous U.S. silver dollars in the recovery. And then the toughest is 25 half dimes were recovered. So with regards to the coins, there was a degree of what was gradable and not gradable and shipwreck effect. The majority of these coins were all found in the second recovery in what was called the purser's safe. And Bob Evans talks about this, that the coins, many of them were very well preserved because the lack of oxygen within the safe. So, really kind of special that, that recovery occurred in 2014. The SS Republic. Getting the data and the details is very, very hard. And there has been no specific release of the numbers. And that's been on purpose from the company that did that recovery called Odyssey Marine. There was actually a 50,000 half dollars recovered. About 2,000 of those were Mexican or earlier silver dollars. But of Seated Liberty, which is our focus, just under 48,000 are Seated Liberty coins. And a number of S-mint marks, and particularly the 18610 I've been able to extract this piece of data, just under 13,000 of the 48,000 are 1861 O's, to give you an order of magnitude. The Odyssey Marine has been very careful in how they've released these coins. And I've done a pedigree of the holders and the generations of release from 2004 to present. Right now, you're starting to see some coins come out in the last 9 months or so, or 12 months, in bolt box black holders. And all they say is shipwreck effect, and they give you a date, 1861-0, 1858-0. Those are the two most common. But of the 1861 O's, early on and midpoint, many of them have been attributed. All 14 of the available 15 die varieties of the 1861-0 are available from the shipwreck. Now, the two US varieties, die 1 and die 2, they're hard to come by, and they're very expensive. I'll just tell you that right now. So you're not going to get one of those for $500. It's going to be $2,000, $2,400, something like that. The last one I'm just going to touch on was in 2006. Is the SS New York. That was the easiest one to excavate because it was only about 60, 70 feet down in the Gulf, and shrimpers in the Gulf had it on their maps as obstruction because their nets would get caught in it. And a few people said, I wonder what's going on. And they started doing research, and they went and did a dive, and they went through the legal process to claim the site. And they were able to just dive with oxygen tanks, do them down to excavate somewhere in between. It was about 2,000 coins, but in silver. But somewhere from what I've been able to document is 1,500 to 1,750 in seated Liberty varieties of dimes, quarters, and $half. The most are in $half. But the Republic, by the way, was at about 1,800 feet down in the Atlantic. And again, the Central America was close to 2 miles down in the Atlantic. Very hard to excavate both of those ships. Okay, so first and second recovery. First recovery coins are all done by PCGS. And if it's a first recovery coin, whether it's silver or gold, it's going to be in a standard slab PCGS clear holder with a gold foil label. And early on, they didn't put any kind of attribute number on it. It was just Central America treasure and what it was. Then midpoint, they started putting the code SSCA and 4-digit number. And then finally, at the very end, they started to do their traditional 7 or 8-digit number on the coin. So you can see it, but that's mainly, you'll see that on gold coins where they've given it a complete attribute. Second recovery from 2014, again, all of that recovery was bought by Dwight Manley and the California Gold Marketing Group. They are in these oversized holders. And they have a little, 0.5 gram gold and then the coin, but they're straight graded. And you'll see a number of those again on the display down at the club table. So any of the varieties, the dime, the quarter, and the dollar, they've laid them out and they've given them straight grades. Now some of them, PCS didn't grade. And eventually all those coins were sold to a company in Texas, and they've been graded by NGC, but they've been either marked in their holders as genuine, SS Central America, or shipwreck effect. No grade. Again, second recovery, that's where I mentioned this. There's a handful of first recovery coins that NGC graded, and that was the first 2 gold coins $20 pieces, NGC graded. And there's actually a video online, you can see it, see that. And then the last 140 some odd gold coins were graded by NGC. And there's another video about that, and it's also on the NGC website, because it was in a wooden box and they were stacked. So you can go on their website and see in detail about the gold coins if that's something of interest. The SS Republic, NGC is the only one that has graded their coins. And the same thing for the SS New York. So you always find their coins in NGC holders with a specific label, and in most cases just says shipwreck effect. Republic, 88 coins from the Republic so far have been straight graded. And if you see one available, there's some available right now on eBay, and their asking price is $2,300 to $3,000 for a straight graded Republic, and it's usually $50. And it's anywhere from XF up to an AU in the grading. So, you know, can't be faint of heart if you're interested in going that way. Here's some examples of first recovery Central America. This is the 1857S. It's one of one from the first recovery. This is the one that is in the Christie's catalog. So if you go to the original Christie's auction catalog, it's in that catalog. It was lot number 147. The mintage, of course, that's a low mintage $50 anyway, first place, but one of one. Spanish, $50. There was a number of those recovered in that group of 20 to 30 coins. And then this is an example of gold. And this, I'll show you the SSCA with the 4-digit number. That's an example of the gold label where they started to give it a little bit more attribute. Now here are examples of the second recovery, the larger holder, and a straight grade. And in some cases, for instance, this is a dime, 1848. There were 162 recovered. So kind of a little easier available. And the mintage was over 450,000. Now this quarter, there were 2 recovered. So this is one of 2 out of that recovery. And then the 46 medium date is one of one. Low grade, but still one of one. So I've done a lot of data mining to extract this. So for every date of all the Central America second recovery, I have every grade, every coin laid out in a spreadsheet just for research and identification. Kind of give you a range of the $50. 22 of the slots are covered in the recovery. 28 of the quarters and 38 of the dimes. So if you were looking at it and saying, okay, well, of the series, how many were in the shipwreck and recovered? 38, 28, and 22. Okay, NGC, really interesting what they did, because when PCGS was doing things a little earlier, you know, all they did was if they wouldn't straight grade it, they just said detail. And I don't think Dwight Manley really kind of liked that. So it was kind of like, okay, here I got a group of coins I can market and sell, and I got a group like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. Then NGC came up with this really unique idea because of the SS Republic and that recovery. And so they came up with this terminology that they trademarked called shipwreck effect. And then they did a detail, so it's 2 pages of detail how they describe their grading process. It's all available on their website. Go to their website under special coin grading special services, shipwreck certification. It's all right there. So what they've done is they'll take a coin, and if they think the surface disturbance is very minimal, they'll give it an A indication. and they take that scale from A to E, and then beyond E, it's just shipwreck effect. If they've given it a designation of A to E, they then will evaluate the coin and say, is it UNC? Is it AU? Is it XF? Is it very fine? Is it good? You know, and I've seen the whole range. God bless you. You'll find a 61.0 with an A UNC. That's going to be far more expensive for the same coin than if it just said shipwreck effect. Just kind of give you an order of magnitude. It's just like any other kind of grading as we go through it. A UNC is going to be the best grade unless it's a straight graded coin. So here are some examples of the Central America second recovery in NGC holders. Here's one with a more simple label. I know it's not a seated Liberty, but it's a very unique coin. It's a cap bus. Originally, PCS graded that coin damaged detailed. Okay? Little did they know. I specialize in counter stamp. That's a merchant counter stamp cast steel on a dime. That's the first one ever known. If you go to the books, there's never been a cast steel on a dime. It's always on pennies. So I was like, oh, I got to get this coin. So then here is all these other dimes out of the 7,500 coins. About 2,000 of them did not get straight graded. So they ended up in these holders. This is a picture of Captain Hernan, who was the U.S. naval captain of the ship when it went down. He went down with the ship. He perished in the loss. And so it's just simple, straight shipwreck effect. These have hit the market in the last 6 or 7 months. So they've been out there. They've been on a couple websites. I haven't seen any pop on eBay yet, though. Okay. Here are other examples. So here's a 61.0 die variety 3. It's shipwreck effect C UNC. Now just shipwreck effect, you know, and you get 2 different shipwreck effects, and you say, wow, that one's a lot better than this one from the New York. Right? There's a couple firms that, though, when they're advertising their coins, they might call this shipwreck effect 2. And they would call this an 8, right? Scale 1 to 10. You'll see that in some marketing. Okay, some further information and kind of what's really enabled me diving. So again, because of Dwight Manley, God bless him, he hired Q. David Bowers. And this is an unbelievable work. It's really expensive, $150, $200, very thick book. It's all about the California Gold Rush, but the amount of detail about the shipwreck and the coins from the first recovery is enormous. So if you're going to get into this, that's a book that you might want to consider. As a historian, I couldn't walk away from it. The second recovery is this book, which is going to be one of our giveaways later on. Again, another Bowers book. And in the back of the book, all those numbers I was quoting, all that detail's in the book. So I just took it out of the book and I put it in spreadsheets and just started working from there and digging. The final item on this page we're talking about is this National Geographic special. It's a 3-part special called Cursed Gold. And it first came out in November of 2024. It was only available for a couple months, and I'll explain that. There was some controversy in that production. One, Bob Evans was offered a significant amount of money to participate in that production. He would not. There are some things that are covered that are in dispute. I had a streaming service have a streaming service with Disney and National Geographic. So I watched the 3-part series twice, once in December of 24 and then in January of 25. When I went to go back a third time, later in like February, it wasn't available anymore, not on the normal streaming. And what occurred was the federal judge who had Tommy Thompson in jail for, he didn't show up for court, so he was being held in jail for like over 10 years for not appearing in court. He finally said, enough of that, finish out serving your term for your other prosecution, and right around then is when this thing went not available. It is, if you have some odd streaming services, you can get it. It's available in Europe if you really want to watch it. It has a lot of good stuff in it, but again, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Tommy Thompson's is going to be released about this time next year. So when you read the books, you'll start to understand all the legal entanglements and what happened with him. Wealth of information, Christie's catalog. So remember the first recovery, some of the treasure went to the claimants, and they auctioned gold coins, gold bars, and gold dust, no silver in that catalog. In Christie's catalog, any of the silver that was recovered was held by the California Gold Marketing Group. That's listed in this catalog. Again, and this catalog was completely written. Christie's hired Q. David Bowers to write all the descriptions. So again, you have an industry expert writing the descriptions of everything that's in that catalog. So really a nice collectible. The other thing that's really fun, if you really want to get super nerdy, and I'm super nerdy about this, is Bob Evans. He's been hired by a company called Finest Known, and they have a website, and he's done now 9 or 10 installments, and some of the installments are 2 parts, where he's gone through piece by piece of the whole story of the recovery, the coins, etc. Really, and in great detail. So if you're going to get into this, I recommend going to their website and finding it and going through it. Wonderful stuff. Also, I just saw a blurb last night, this morning from A&A. Bob Evans is going to be doing an A&A talk, if you're a member of A&A, next, I think, Thursday the 13th, where he's going to be talking about small coinage from the recovery. So that's interesting. And then, other support, plug for Finest Known, they've given me a lot of help. And without me necessarily always buying something from them. So I recommend Troy Baker as a contact. He's been a wealth of help. Other books. This is, I strongly recommend this book. The Lost World of the Republic, because of the approach of the book about doing the discovery part, technology, the legal entanglements of claiming a ship, and then the part about the actual coins, and it goes back and forth. The historic writing approach in this book, different than Bowers, but as good or better. So I really recommend this book. Also in this book really unfolds the whole history of the Republic. Very unique ship. I'll give one little tidbit. Anybody remember, in the Civil War, there's a famous Admiral Farragut, right? And there's a quote, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." Anybody heard that quote before? Yes? Okay. He was on the bridge of what was then the SS Tennessee, and that was the name of the ship before it got changed. And that was the Battle of Mobile. So that's just a little piece of history. Brett, he talks about the Republic, and one of his quotes in the book is, he says, this is the Forrest Gump of U.S. ships from the 19th century, because of all the unique places and things that it encountered in the 1850s all the way up to its sinking. When the ship was lost, it had a huge negative impact on the reconstruction efforts of the Civil War, because it was carrying $400,000 in gold and silver to New Orleans from New York to help with getting the economy back up on its feet in New Orleans. And New Orleans was the second largest port in the country. So it really, it did have a huge negative impact, just like the Central America when it went down. It helped with the Panic of 1857 because all the New York banks were counting on all that gold coming to back up their paper money. So these are the stories. When you start reading the books, it's not just about the coin, it's the whole history around it. And then finally, another Q. David Bowers book. It's not a long read, but it really gives you a good snapshot, kind of high level. And that's how he kind of said, hand waved, oh, there's about 2,000 silver coins, and they're a mix of US and Spanish and French, etc. He didn't detail. All the gold that was recovered is detailed in the book. So if you're interested in gold, you can get all the detail. But another decent book, not terribly expensive, certainly out there. Pricing, gold's more expensive than silver, rarity, impact of the shipwreck effect, I talked about that already. A, more expensive. But if you just want to have one or two examples, if you're a patient, you can find a common date Republic $half for as low as $2.25, $2.50, all the way up to $600 that you want to get on a rare date. The most common, what I've observed, is the 58.0 and the 61.0 are the two most common. You go do a search on eBay, you can see how many coins are listed, right? And you'll see all kinds of crazy price ranges, which I'll touch now on a little bit more. Most affordable, the seated halves from the Republic, dimes from the Central America, and then some of the silver coins from the New York. But in my opinion, that's kind of like an overlooked area because there's only 1,500 to 1,700 coins that were recovered from the New York compared to the numbers from the Central America and the Republic. So the New York is I think overlooked by a lot of people. Price craziness. So when the first set of Republic $half hit the market in 2004, they got a lot of marketing bling in these special wooden boxes and stuff. And it was a 24-hour TV blast by TV Coin Vault show. And they you're shaking your head. And these things were sold in 2004 for $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, and people bought them. And I've talked to people and they're like, oh yeah, my dad bought this is real valuable. I'm just shaking my head because some of them had, a $200 coin, right? And a $10 wooden box and a $1 CD. Okay, so when you go on eBay, I see people trying to recover, but then I've seen where, an antique shop has bought one of these from somebody, and I've picked up one of these in the box with a coin for $500. Okay, but when you see them for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 on eBay, no. So that's it. I know I kind of rolled through that. Or any questions, anything I can expand on or chat further about? Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the SS Japan?
I'm sorry?
The SS Japan.
Can't.
The SS Japan.
Japan.
It went down in either 1874 or 1875 off the coast of China with a full load of 74S and 74cc trade dollars.
Not familiar with that one. Was it a mail packet ship?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, those three were all official mail packet ships. And I haven't seen any coins from
There's
that.
been a few dozens that have been recovered that are in not great shape.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
This is off the topic, but it's relevant to the issue of the,
I'm sorry?
this is off the topic, but relative to the issue of the mailing of the Gobrecht Journal. If you're a snowbird, owing to the fact that these are mailed by standard mail, even if you have premium forwarding service, which is a cost-based service, I think it's like $25 a month. Well, short of that, you will not get that mailing. It will be sent to what we call undeliverable bulk business mail. They will not forward standard mail if you have a temporary address that you have your first class forwarded to. Also, if you do have a subscription to premium forwarding service, you not only have to fill out the forwarding order at the delivery unit of your primary residence, you also have to go to the delivery unit at your temporary address and confirm your identity. Otherwise, they will do the same thing. They'll just send it to the recycling bin. So you don't want to miss out on that by not following through with the current protocol for forwarding standard mail.
If there are any other questions about the shipwreck? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so how many were straight graded? I mean, what
Of the Central America?
of all three that you just described?
Okay. I have no documentation of any point from the SS New York being straight graded.
Okay.
Okay? And that's because of the very warm salt water and the way where they were in the Gulf. I know that of the Republic, to date, 88 have been straight graded.
So a really low percentage.
Oh, yeah. 40, you do the math, 48 out of 48,000.
Okay.
Of the Central America, going back to my spreadsheet in my mind real quick, I would say about 6,000 to 6,500 across the three denominations have been straight graded by PCGS. Everything from a 2 up to, I've seen Mid-State 63. So full range.
Everything in the purse is safe.
Yeah, they were all coins that were in the purser safe.
And do these straight graded coins labeled off of shipwreck command? What level of premium do they command?
Okay, couple factors come into that. One, what's the rarity of the date itself? Okay, so that's going to have a major factor. And then how many were of that date in the wreck were recovered? You got certain ones where only 6 or 7 coins were recovered of that particular date. Others, you got some that were 160, 150, large numbers. So now all of a sudden, when you got a larger pool of coins, price starts coming down. Okay, so that you get it becomes a rather complicated equation of determining. What I would say is that, for instance, dimes, seeded dimes from Central America should be in the price range of about $500 to $750 for most of them. Okay, there's a couple that are higher grade, rare date, few recovered. Now you're going to push into the $1,000, $1,200 range, maybe a little more. Okay, quarters and halves, just in general, because limited number recovered. Now you're definitely talking into the higher dollar range, $900 to $1,500 per coin for second recovery coins. If you're really passionate about it, there's a guy who has a seated quarter, common date, There's quite a number of them recovered. He's asking $15,000 on eBay, so you know it's a bargain if you really want it. You know.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You touched on the topic of the economic impact of these shipwrecks. I was wondering if you've done a deeper dive on that.
So, so the economic impact of the Central America, of course, is pretty well documented from the standpoint that it was kind of really the straw that broke the camel's back with the stock market and the crash of 1857. Because there was a run with all the banks. It put a number of companies under, and it really put the country into an economic depression for about 2.5 years when the Central America went down. And so the country was really just starting to come out of that economic impact of that panic when we ran into the thing called the Civil War. And there's some historians that kind of give credit that negative impact kind of accelerated the issue of moving towards the Civil War faster.
That said, did anybody ever consider sabotage?
Pardon?
That said, is it possible that anyone ever considered sabotage?
No, it was a hurricane. And they ran straight, into a Category 2, 3 hurricane. And
no Weather Channel.
No GPS, no Weather Channel. And the ship fought muddily for a number of days before she went down. And from also an impact.
Reports of that.
From an impact also, lives lost. The Central America was the worst calamity of the time. Over 480 people perished. There was, between crew and passengers, there was only 523 people on the ship. So you look at those numbers, it was a huge calamity when that ship went down and that loss.
Do you have an idea of percentage of like the gold owned by passengers as opposed to banks or corporations?
That's a really great question. So there was gold that was part of the government shipment. Then they found what they call pokes, which is a sack of gold dust or smaller gold bars that had been processed by the assayers in California that they found in saddlebags or in other like trunks and things like that. So, but that's probably a very small percentage of the gold recovered versus what was in the main cargo hold. And Bob Evans talks about that in detail of how they figured out how to, suck up the gold dust that was all around the bars and the coins on the ocean floor because it spilled out. And literally, mining gold dust, panning for gold dust out of the ocean floor, sucking up the mud and the debris and pulling it up into these buckets and then processing it on the deck of the ship. So it's very interesting. So if you go, again, find this note, he talks about that in one or two of his episodes where he goes into great detail about the whole recovery of the gold dust. All right, so we need to wrap up. I have a couple giveaways, so I'm going to pull some tickets. So the first ticket is for this book by about the second recovery, and it is last three numbers 539. We got a winner. Okay. The second one is 553. Anyone?
Yeah, gotta be somebody here.
Here's 553.
Okay, so in here is a really neat CD and a little booklet about the Republic.
Sweet.
Okay, all right, 550. Okay, So this is a special edition of Red Book with the Central America logo and everything. And I got one more of those to give away. 544. There you go. All right. So thanks everyone for allowing me to.
We have one more giveaway item donated by David Reimer. This is a commemorative medal from the Christian Gobrecht headstone ceremony last November. Is this the one to pull from? And the number is 551. Okay. All right, next number, 540. Anybody? Maybe
Some
they
people left.
Yeah, we'll try.
Oh, that's gotta be Daryl, man.
538. Holy cow.
It'll get down to you soon.
I'm having trouble giving this one away. 546. Oh, you
have 2 tickets?
Oh, you had 538? Robert, you had 538?
538.
Okay, all right. Congrats. All right, thank you. And there's a good display of these shipwreck coins downstairs at the club table. So.
Yep.
All right.
Table 1017.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it, especially that 78S.